نحمده ونصلي على رسول الكريم أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today we will continue on with the rulings of the sacred law and cover those actions that are recommended, or the Mandubaat, and those actions that are permitted in the deen, which are also known as Mubahat. Those actions that are Mubah, those that are permitted. So let's look at the after the compulsory actions, the recommended actions. Now, recommended actions are really Sunnan. They are derived from the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the way of the Sahaba Karam. So the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the way of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam as practiced by the Sahaba, by the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. At a very high level, these actions are also known as nawaafil. Yani nawaafil as opposed to your farz and your wajib. Because typically when in certain contexts, when scholars of the deen and fiqh, they talk about fara-id and nawaafil actions, these are those actions. They are in fact the Sunnan of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We are acting upon the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the way of the blessed companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So synonymous terms are Sunnah, Mandubaat, and nawaafil, if we look at it in context with fara-id and wajibaat. So three kinds of mubahat, three kinds of Sunnan. The first one is Sunnah mu-akkadah, the second one is Sunnah ghair mu-akkadah, and the third one is mustahab. Sunnah mu-akkadah are those Sunnan that are emphatic. In other words, they are confirmed Sunnah. They were based on the regular practice of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the blessed companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they rarely ever left it out except on rare occasion. You are rewarded for acting upon a Sunnah mu-akkadah, but you are not punished for leaving it out. However, you are blameworthy for doing so. Habitual non-performance of a Sunnah mu-akkadah, of a confirmed emphatic Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, is considered sinful by the lawmaker. Examples of this is the adhan. The adhan is a Sunnah mu-akkadah, and the congregational Jama'ah prayer, the Jama'ah prayer that when the believers get together and pray together, that is a congregational prayer. It is a Sunnah mu-akkadah to perform it as such. Sunnah ghair mu-akkadah, on the other hand, are those actions that the practice of the Prophet ﷺ and the blessed companions, but that were not as regularly performed as a Sunnah mu-akkadah. You are rewarded for acting upon a Sunnah ghair mu-akkadah, an emphatic Sunnah, and you are not punished for leaving it out, nor are you considered blameworthy for doing so. Examples of this are the 4 rakats Sunnah before Asr prayer and fasting on Mondays and on Thursdays. These are an emphatic Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then the third category are those mustahab a'mal, those actions that are desirable and are considered also as part of the Sunnah, even though they may or may not be derived from a hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They may have been also performed once or twice, or actually acknowledged by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and are considered pleasing to the scholars and to the awliya of Islam, to the saints of Islam. You are rewarded for performing these mustahabat, and you are not punished for leaving them out. Any other action apart from the Sunnah mu-akkadah and Sunnah ghair mu-akkadah that has been deemed as a good practice and a mustahab action fall under this category, and these actions are the vast majority of things that we do outside of the regular Sunnah mu-akkadah and Sunnah ghair mu-akkadah actions. Examples of this is, for example, standing when the iqamah occurs, when the call to prayer to stand up for prayer, hayya alal falah, which means come towards success. When that is called out, the lines of people stand up. That is a mustahab action to do so, and you're rewarded for that as a desirable sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. Avoiding worldly speech during wudu. Wudu is a practice that is actually worship. It's not just about washing our limbs, but it's also about spiritually purifying ourselves, and therefore an act of worship. And avoiding worldly speech about things that have nothing to do with worship is a mustahab amal. It's a mustahab action to avoid worldly speech. So it's best to perform your wudu when you are making a dhikr while performing your wudu, and being aware of not being in the vicinity of an unclean place when doing so. And that covers the recommended actions, the Sunnan, the Mandubaat, the Sunnan of our beloved Prophet ﷺ, and the way of the companions. The next section are those actions that are permitted. This is often known as halal actions or Mubaah actions, which means that they are neither required nor are they prohibited, and they fall in the area between the two. Everything, there's a principle in the deen, usul, in fiqh, known as that everything is permissible unless it is specifically prohibited. The vast majority of actions, again, fall in this neutral category. You are neither punished for it nor are you rewarded for this action, and they are typically called halal. You may be punished if your intention was to do an evil deed even though you are performing an act that is permissible or mubah. Or you may also be rewarded with the intention that you intended to do good while acting upon a mubah action. An example would be that if a person were to intend to eat something haram, thinking that that was haram, but later on finds out that that was not a haram thing to eat, but his intention or her intention was to consume something haram, then they would be liable for punishment because of the intention. And then likewise, for a person who intends to do good, he would be or she would be rewarded for that action. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq to act upon those acts that Allah has mandated for us, and to follow upon the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam by following the mandubaat actions, and to stay within the boundaries of Islam and not to exceed those things that are not to go beyond anything that is permitted. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Mawlana Muhammadin wa ala ali Sayyidina Mawlana Muhammadin wa barik wa sallim wa sallam alayhi wa ma alayna illa al-balagh al-mubin. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.